Dawn was only a whisper behind the clouds. The forest, usually bursting with the first light of birdsong, held a heavy silence. Not peace, pressure. Even the oldest trees, towering like watchful giants, seemed to sag under the weight of the coming storm. Somewhere in the east, thunder grumbled low, like a god just waking up. Ranger Dev Pot adjusted the strap of his field pack and scanned the trail ahead. The path cut through a narrow valley known as Blackwater Hollow, a name earned long ago, when unexpected rains drowned it within minutes. Most days, it was safe. Most days. Today didn't feel like most days. Behind him, Reka, Thambi, and young Jatin trudged carefully over the damp earth. They'd been sent to do a routine check of the water gauges and animal camera traps before the real storm hit. The agency had predicted heavy rains by afternoon. They had time, or so they thought. Then, it came. A growl. Low, coarse, too deliberate to be the wind. Dev stopped mid-step. The others halted instinctively. "Did you hear?" Jatin began. "Yes," Dev cut in. His hand moved slowly to the radio on his belt, though he didn't touch it yet. He turned toward the ridge that climbed steeply along the left side of the trail. The forest grew denser there, with stone outcrops and tangled brush, and somewhere in that green silence, growl. This one was louder. Still not close. Still not aggressive, but persistent. "There's a leopard up there," Reka said quietly. "Watching us." Dev nodded. "Yes, but he's not hiding. And he's not stalking." They looked up. The leopard stepped into view. A stunning male, slim but strong, golden coat flecked with black rosettes. He stood not 10 meters above them on a rocky shelf, muscles tense, but not in a predator's crouch. His tail lashed once, his ears flicked. Then, another growl. This time longer, deeper, and strangely, directional. He was looking not at them now, but past them, down the trail, toward the ravine's edge. "What's he trying to say?" Thambi whispered. Dev didn't answer right away. Instead, he closed his eyes and listened. The wind shifted, and that's when they heard it. Water. Not the gentle babble of a stream, but the distant roar of movement. Rushing, rising, surging. A wall of it, fed by some sudden upstream downpour. "Blackwater's flooding," Dev said sharply. "Now!" "But the forecast," Jatin began. "Was wrong," Reka snapped. Growl. The leopard let out one final call, then turned, leapt up the slope, and vanished into the foliage. The rangers didn't hesitate. They turned and started moving, fast, back the way they came. And as they ran, the roar of the water behind them grew louder, chasing them not with malice, but with terrifying, unstoppable certainty. They didn't look back, but none of them would ever forget what made them run in time. A growl. From a creature that knew the forest better than they ever would. The first raindrops didn't fall. They slapped. As the rangers scrambled up the sloping trail, the sky cracked open like a clay pot dropped from the clouds. Fat, warm drops pelted the leaves in the backs of their necks, instantly soaking their uniforms. What was a humid, heavy morning turned into a liquid wall in less than a minute. Behind them, the sound of water intensified. Not just rain, but the roar of the ravine below giving way. They were too late to avoid the flood. They could only hope to outpace it. "Keep moving!" Dev shouted, slipping on a slick root and catching himself on a hanging vine. Ahead, Reka used her machete to clear a fallen branch, choking the trail, her breath coming fast. Thambi helped Jatin navigate around a rock slide, practically dragging the younger ranger up a steep rise. Dev turned back just once and saw it. The flood. It wasn't a wave. It was a creep. A wide wall of brown, churning water, licking its way up the sides of the ravine like a slow-moving predator, devouring everything in its path. Logs, debris, and mud swirled at the edges like claws, and it was rising. Fast. "There's a fork up ahead," Reka yelled over the rain. "I know the one," Dev shouted back. Left climbs higher. Right crosses the creek." "We won't make it across the creek," she snapped. "Left, then." They veered left as the trail narrowed again, pressed against the rocky bluff. With every step, the path grew steeper, more broken, washed out in places. Water began cascading down in small waterfalls from the cliffs above. Jatin slipped and fell to one knee. Tambi yanked him up without a word. No one had time to panic, only to move. And then, the growl returned. But from above, all of them stopped, despite everything. High on the rocks, silhouetted against the glowing stormlight, the leopard stood again, legs splayed, growling not at them this time, but into the wind, toward a barely visible ledge further uphill. "He's guiding us," Dev breathed. There wasn't a second thought. They followed. It wasn't a trail. It was a half-collapsed deer path, barely wide enough for 1 foot at a time. But it arched around the bluff, above the high water mark. As they climbed, breath ragged, the noise below faded, just a little. And then they reached it. A dry plateau, sheltered beneath a hanging rock shelf. Just wide enough for them to huddle, just high enough to watch the muddy chaos roar past in the valley beneath them. For a long while, no one spoke. Rain poured off the stone lip above them, forming a curtain that blurred the edge of the world. Beneath it, the river raged, taking trees, roots, pieces of the trail itself. Blackwater Hollow was gone, swallowed. Then Jatin said softly, "He knew." Dev, kneeling at the ledge, nodded. "Before we did. Before the sky told us. He knew, and somewhere, in the forest beyond the rocks, the leopard was gone again. Not fleeing, just finished." The rain stopped without warning. Not gradually. No gentle tapering to a drizzle. It ended as sharply as it began, as if someone high above had turned off the tap. Only the echo of its fury remained, dripping from branches, trickling down stone. The rangers stayed under the rock shelf for nearly an hour after the sky cleared. Partly to dry, mostly to breathe. Below them, the transformed landscape groaned under its own weight. The narrow trail they'd taken earlier had completely vanished, replaced by churned earth, dislodged boulders, and the dark, restless smear of the river, now swollen and thick like oil. "We need to report in," Reka said eventually, holding her radio up, trying to catch a signal. "Command will think we drowned." Dev nodded but didn't move. He was staring at something below, something that hadn't been there before, a break in the tree line. "Do you see that?" he asked. Tambi followed his gaze. "That clearing? It's new, washed clean," Dev murmured. As soon as the river dropped enough for them to descend safely, they made their way down through the wet stone and dripping vines. Every footstep squelched. The air was thick and strangely warm, like the forest was sweating from within. What they found in the clearing wasn't natural, not completely. The flood had unearthed something. A half-collapsed stone structure, its edges chiseled by hand. Not a building, but something older. A boundary wall, maybe, or a shrine. Ferns clung to its sides, their roots now exposed where the water had stripped away the earth. "This isn't on any of our maps," Reka said, kneeling beside it. Dev traced his fingers across the grooves in the stone. Patterns, symbols. Some he recognized from tribal lore, spirals and claw marks, used by the forest people to denote sacred sites. But others were unfamiliar, deeper, sharper. "This is ancient," he said softly, "and hidden for a reason." Jatin shivered despite the heat. "You think that's why the leopard was here?" They were all thinking it now. The leopard hadn't just warned them of danger. He had led them. Tambi stood apart from the group, scanning the tree line with his binoculars. "Over there," he said, pointing. "Tracks." Sure enough, fresh paw prints, still clear in the softened earth, wove through the edges of the clearing. Large, purposeful, but not running, watching. "Do you think he brought us here?" Jatin asked. Dev didn't answer right away. He stood and looked up at the sky. The storm had passed, but something larger had opened. And the animal that had saved them, it wasn't acting alone. It was responding to something ancient, something buried, something alive beneath the roots and stone. And now, they had found it. The radio crackled for a full 5 minutes before it connected. Reka, her voice half drowned in static, relayed their position, the flood damage, and the leopard's strange behavior. But when she mentioned the stone ruins, the line went unusually quiet. Then, a curt reply. Copy. Return to base immediately. Do not engage further with the structure. Repeat. Do not investigate. Await orders. The Rangers stared at the radio in disbelief. They're telling us to ignore it? Thamby asked, his voice tightening. It just rose out of the earth and nearly got swallowed by a flood, and they want us to walk away? Dev was quiet. Too quiet. He wasn't just thinking about the strange carvings or the perfect way the leopard had guided them. He was remembering something else. A story told by his grandfather when he was a boy. About the animals that guarded the forest's breath. Creatures who walked paths only they could see, leading people away from places that weren't ready to be touched. He thought it was a myth. Until now. Back at base camp, the mood was colder than the wet socks in their boots. They gave their reports, minus some details. Not lies. Just pauses. When they mentioned the stone formation, the senior officer, Inspector Rathod, stiffened visibly. You were told not to approach the southern basin, he said. It wasn't the southern basin, Dev replied. It was Blackwater. The rains uncovered it. We didn't seek it out. Doesn't matter. It's not our concern. But it's on reserve land, Rekha shot back. If there's a site of cultural or ecological significance, I said it's not your concern. His tone ended the conversation. Officially. Later that night, when the others had gone to sleep, Dev stepped outside the ranger station into the misty dark. Crickets chirped. The forest smelled of damp stone and new moss. He sat on a rock and looked up at the moon. And then, he saw them. On the opposite ridge, just beyond the tree line. Eyes, golden. Watching. The same leopard. Not threatening. Not afraid. Just present. As if to say, you saw, you heard, you can't go back now. And Dev understood. The forest didn't speak in language. It spoke in instinct, in growls, in storms, and in silence. But it always told the truth, whether people listened or not. The next morning, the station buzzed with quiet denial. The flood damage reports were logged. Trail 7 was marked inaccessible until dry. The ruined clearing near Blackwater? Listed simply as topsoil erosion, minor impact. Dev stared at the map on the wall. The area where they'd nearly died and uncovered something ancient was marked with a dull gray X. Closed. Not to be revisited. But the leopard's gaze still burned in his memory. He could feel it. Not a haunting, but a calling. Not fear, urgency. By afternoon, he made his decision. He packed lightly, a machete, water flask, flare, camera, and notebook. No rifle, no radio, no team. Only instinct. As he left, Jatton spotted him and jogged up. You're going back, aren't you? The young ranger asked, breath short. Even after the order? Dev didn't lie. Yes. Then I'm going too. Before Dev could protest, Rekha appeared behind them, already tightening her boots. You'll get lost without me. And I don't trust you two not to fall in a hole. Thamby joined with a small shrug. I brought tea. Might as well be illegal tea. Dev looked at them all, then nodded once. No ceremony, just purpose. They avoided the main trail and cut through older, forgotten ranger paths. Overgrown veins of the forest, once used by tribal guides long gone. Each step deeper into Blackwater Hollow felt like crossing into a place untouched by time. Hours passed. The jungle changed. Less birdsong, more silence. Then, just as the sun broke into slivers between cloud banks, they found it again. The ruin. The storm had stripped more soil, revealing the edges of a sunken courtyard. Moss-covered stone steps descended into shadows, and strange symbols now curled fully around the structure like vines. Symbols that hummed with unfamiliar geometry. Loops and spirals, unlike any known writing. Are we documenting this? Rekha asked. Dev nodded and took out the camera. Everything. They spent 2 hours photographing and sketching. At one point, Jatton found a half-buried object, a smooth carved disc made of black stone, etched with a leopard paw print inside a sunburst. He looked at Dev, pale. What is this place? Dev had no answer, only the deepening certainty that the forest had chosen to reveal it, and not by accident. Then a rustle. They turned sharply, just in time to see him. The leopard, standing on the far edge of the sunken steps, calm and poised. His golden eyes reflected firelight from the lowering sun. But this time, he didn't growl. He descended, step by step, into the heart of the ruins, and stopped. Then turned, waiting. No threat, no fear, just a silent command. Follow. The leopard stood at the center of the sunken chamber, unmoving. His presence was impossibly still. Less an animal now, more a guardian in flesh. A relic that had outlived even the stories. Dev descended the moss-covered steps slowly. The others followed in silence, their boots crunching softly on the shifting grit of time-worn stone. With each step down, the air thickened, not just with moisture, but with something heavier. Memory. Carvings lined the inner walls, now fully visible in the shifting afternoon light. They showed creatures not just leopards, but elephants, serpents, and birds, each connected to humans by lines of energy etched in patterns that resembled wind, water, and flame. Jatin traced one with his fingers. These aren't just drawings, he whispered. They're instructions. Reka moved to a section where small alcoves were carved into the wall. Inside, weather-worn bone fragments and woven offerings rested, undisturbed by time or flood. This was a shrine, she said. Maybe more. No, Dev said, eyes fixed on the central floor. He knelt. There, barely visible beneath dirt and lichen, was an engraving, a perfect circle split by claw marks. Around it, 7 animal shapes, each with a trail leading outward. He began clearing the dust from the center. What he uncovered wasn't stone. It was metal. A bronze plate, sealed into the ground, inscribed with a language that pulsed with age. Beneath it, a hollow sound, like space existed just under the surface. Thambi rapped it with his knuckles. It's covering something. Reka glanced at the leopard, who hadn't moved. His breathing was slow, patient, not watching them, watching the moment. Do we open it? Jatin asked. Dev hesitated. This wasn't archaeology anymore. This was something older than cataloging, older than permission. But the leopard had brought them here. He nodded. They pried gently, using the flat edge of a machete and a crowbar. The seal lifted with surprising ease, and beneath it, a cavity, shallow, lined with red earth and stone, and resting inside, a second disc, larger than the one they'd found earlier, glowing faintly with an iridescent sheen. Dev lifted it carefully. The metal was warm, not hot, but alive. It vibrated slightly in his hands, like a heartbeat beneath skin. There were no circuits, no obvious tech. But every part of his being screamed, this was never meant to be forgotten. Suddenly, the leopard growled, not aggressively, warning. They looked up and heard the voices, footsteps. Back at the ridge, figures moved through the trees, uniforms, other rangers, and someone in a dark suit. Someone told command, Reka said grimly. They followed our trail, Thambi added. We have to hide this, Dev said quickly, lowering the disc back into the hollow. No time, Jatin said, panicked. They'll take it, bury it again, or worse. The leopard stepped forward then, and for a moment, stood over the open chamber like a priest at an altar. And for the first time, he roared, a deep, thunderous, echoing sound that rolled through the forest. Not rage. Claim. The jungle around them responded. Branches shuddered, birds scattered, and in the far distance, the sound of rainfall returned. We can't take it, Dev said suddenly, understanding, but we can protect it. They reset the seal, brushed over the earth, hid the first disc inside a hollow log. Every move was fast, careful, practiced. By the time the others reached the clearing, they were just rangers standing in the ruins of a flood zone. No signs, no proof. Only a story none of them would ever put in a report. Only a truth carved in bone, stone, and the breath of a leopard. Ready for Chapter 7. Where the leopard disappears, the officials rewrite the past, and Dev must decide whether to remain silent or become the voice that warns, like the growl before the flood. Вы сказали, 7 чат GPT сказал, here is chapter 7 of Stormy Dawn. A leopard's repeated growls alerted rangers to rising waters, cutting off the trail, where truth is buried again but never dies, and silence becomes both shield and promise. Chapter 7. The Growl That Echoes After. By dusk, the forest had returned to its facade of calm. The officials came with clipboards, cameras, and quiet authority. They asked careful questions and listened with unreadable eyes. The man in the dark suit, he never gave his name, circled the ruins without touching anything. Dev, Reka, Tambi, and Jatin gave minimal answers. Flood, erosion, some animal disturbance. The carvings? Too worn to identify. The structure? Collapsed remnants. Likely tribal. They didn't lie, but they did not tell the whole story. How could they? There was no report form for what they had seen. No checklist that asked, did an animal guide you to a hidden shrine older than your government? Did the forest pulse with memory when you touched the truth? Did you feel chosen? So they said nothing, and the officials eventually left. Weeks passed. Blackwater Hollow remained closed, officially for restoration. A private contractor, quietly hired, reburied the site, citing safety concerns. The clearing was reseeded, the trail repaved, and still, the leopard returned. Each dawn, Dev would walk the perimeter before patrols began. Some days the cat was there, far off, poised on the rocks like a sentinel. Other days, only the paw prints remained. But always, the message was clear. You saw. Remember. One night, Reka left a notebook in the shrine's direction, hidden beneath a cairn of stones. Inside it, drawings of the carvings, translations they were still working on, and a short letter. To whoever finds this after us, we did not forget. The forest remembers itself. Listen to it. R. Jatin, years later, would go on to teach at the Forestry Institute. He never spoke of the Blackwater site in lectures, but he taught his students to read animal signs, not just for data, but for warnings, for meaning. Tambi retired early, built a house not far from the hollow's edge. He joked it was for the air, but they all knew it was to stay close. And Dev? Dev remained a ranger, but not just of trails. He became a keeper of something older, a silent guardian of the story beneath the story, the growl that came before the storm, the animal that knew before any radar did, the ruin that revealed itself only to those who listened, and always the sense that one day the leopard would call again, and next time they would be ready. Would you like a title card/summary plus YouTube description of the full 7-chapter story, or perhaps a prompt for the preview image in realistic style? Вы сказали, промпт чат GPT сказал. Вот реалистичный текстовый промпт для генерации превью картинки к истории Stormy Dawn, a leopard's repeated growls, alerted rangers to rising waters, cutting off the trail. Prompt на английском для AI-генераторов изображений. A hyper-realistic scene at dawn in a tropical jungle. A fierce-looking leopard stands on a muddy jungle trail, its muscles tense and head lifted in a warning growl. Behind it, 4 human forest rangers in soaked uniforms freeze in surprise, eyes wide, just steps away from a rapidly rising river flood spilling over a broken path. The storm clouds above are cracked with early light, casting a golden glow through the mist. Lush trees loom around them, soaked and bending from recent rain. The leopard is in focus, powerful and still. Cinematic lighting, photorealistic detail, dramatic tension in the composition. 16 by 9 format. Prompt, короткая версия для Midjourney, DALL-E или Leonardo AI. Cinematic photorealistic tropical jungle at dawn. Leopard growling on muddy trail, surprised rangers in soaked uniforms, rising river flood behind them, storm clouds parting with golden light, misty atmosphere, detailed foliage, tense and dramatic scene, 16 by 9, style raw, R16 by 9, V6, quality. 2. Хочешь? Могу сгенерировать превью прямо сейчас. Сказать? By dusk, the forest had returned to its facade of calm. The officials came with clipboards, cameras, and quiet authority. They asked careful questions and listened with unreadable eyes. The man in the dark suit, he never gave his name, circled the ruins without touching anything. Dev, Reka, Tambi, and Jatin gave minimal answers. Flood, erosion, some animal disturbance. The carvings? Too worn to identify. The structure? Collapsed remnants. Likely tribal. They didn't lie, but they did not tell the whole story. How could they? There was no report form for what they had seen. No checklist that asked, did an animal guide you to a hidden shrine older than your government? Did the forest pulse with memory when you touched the truth? Did you feel chosen? So they said nothing, and the officials eventually left. Weeks passed. Blackwater Hollow remained closed, officially for restoration. A private contractor, quietly hired, reburied the site, citing safety concerns. The clearing was reseeded, the trail repaved, and still, the leopard returned. Each dawn, Dev would walk the perimeter before patrols began. Some days the cat was there, far off, poised on the rocks like a sentinel. Other days, only the paw prints remained. But always, the message was clear. You saw. Remember. One night, Reka left a notebook in the shrine's direction, hidden beneath a cairn of stones. Inside it, drawings of the carvings, translations they were still working on, and a short letter. To whoever finds this after us, we did not forget. The forest remembers itself. Listen to it. R. Jatin, years later, would go on to teach at the Forestry Institute. He never spoke of the Blackwater site in lectures, but he taught his students to read animal signs not just for data, but for warnings, for meaning. Thambi retired early, built a house not far from the hollow's edge. He joked it was for the air, but they all knew it was to stay close. And Dev? Dev remained a ranger, but not just of trails. He became a keeper of something older, a silent guardian of the story beneath the story, the growl that came before the storm, the animal that knew before any radar did, the ruin that revealed itself only to those who listened, and always the sense that one day the leopard would call again, and next time they would be ready.